Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth session of the BJ Careers Month. My name is Ben Maheson, and I'm just going to introduce this session. Today, we have a very, very good session with Eloise Skinner, who is a therapist, entrepreneur, and author who's going to talk to you today about the purpose workshop, and purpose finding in your career. And at the end of the session as well, you'll have a lot of new skills and tools to help you in the real world to help finding the topic of purpose at your work. So the session is going to be about an hour long, like the rest of the sessions have been. So Eloise will speak for about 40 to 50 minutes, and at the very end, we'll have a Q&A. So feel free to put all your questions in the Q&A box below, and we'll answer them at the end. Okay, hand over to you now, Eloise.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for listening or joining. And yeah, welcome to this workshop on finding a sense of purpose. We're going to look at it both from a personal and professional perspective. So you'll get a little bit of maybe some tips and tools in finding your personal sense of purpose, but also in finding your career purpose. Just to let you know, I can't actually see any of you or the chat. So if you do have like questions, comments, or anything like as we go along, if you can't hear me or whatever, just put it in the chat and then Ben will hopefully let me know. Cool. All right. So yes, as Ben mentioned, we're going to go for about 45 minutes. And then if you do have questions at the end, definitely ask them, even if they seem really basic or even if they're about something slightly different, like happy to talk about my own career path and things like that as well. All right, so this is what we're going to be working through today. Firstly, what is purpose, or what is the concept of purpose? Secondly, the value and the benefits of purpose, like why you should even bother doing this kind of work. Then what gets in the way, a couple of questions about shaping your purpose, and we're going to look at it from a few different concepts, and then questions at the end. So here's a couple of reasons why it's important or it could be important for you to find your purpose. Here are a couple of ways it really helps you in real life. The first is that purpose often acts as a compass. And so by that, I mean, when you move through your life, especially when you move into your first career or you're changing careers or whatever, up into the professional world, you often get to turning points where you're like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know which job to pick. I don't know which offer to go for. Should I take an internship? Should I take a gap year? Whatever. So this is where your purpose, if you have a good sense of what that might be, can sort of act as a bit of a steering tool. Like it can give you an indication of maybe this over this, or what would align most closely with your personal set of values and what you feel is important about the world. And then secondly, it can be a guide. This is kind of similar, but with a compass, it might give you a direction. With this sense of purpose being a guide, it might just tell you, what matters to you. It normally just gives you some information that you can then put into your everyday life to make a decision. So that might be, for example, I had a corporate career before. I was a corporate lawyer, and I knew like I really wanted to write more and teach more. And so I was kind of moving around in the corporate world, like looking for these opportunities to write and teach. And I knew like my purpose was my guide in the sense that it was telling me like, these are the things that you enjoy, like you should go towards these things. It wasn't necessarily telling me like, quit your job tomorrow and go and be a writer, which eventually I did leave the industry, but it was more of a steady like guiding process towards where I wanted to get to, if that makes sense. And then the third one is the purpose normally gives you a sense of grit or like resilience for life. And we'll come on to this later, but all of the people who have achieved incredible things, like with huge amounts of grit and fortitude, tend to be people who have quite a clear sense of what they want in life. Sometimes that's the hardest part of this whole process, is figuring out like, what do you actually want? What do you care about? What are the things that are important in your life? And the answers to those questions are going to shift and change like as you move through your life anyway. But it's just good to keep asking yourself the question, really, and have the tools to be able to ask yourself those questions. So those are some suggestions. All right, and then let me tell you a little bit about where this work comes from. So my background is as an existential therapist, and this is the field of existentialism. This is more like philosophy, the pondering questions of who am I, who is everyone else, like what are we here to do, that kind of thing. So this is the philosophical field of existentialism. Then from that, you also get something called existential therapy, which is about taking those ideas, those big ideas like existential questions, and working one-on-one with a therapist to try and figure out, some practical ways to deal with those. This is what I am trained in. And even, I thought there was another slide. Even more specifically, I'm trained in the work of someone called Viktor Frankl, who you might recognize as the author of a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He set out his own therapy, which was all about finding meaning and purpose, and it was called logotherapy. So that's kind of what I'm working with. All right, so these are the sections that we're going to be looking through. We're going to look at purpose from a couple of different angles. We're going to look firstly at purpose from the basic angle, then we'll also look at mission, and then we'll look at passion. And within all of these sections, there'll be some tasks or some reflections for you guys to do as well. So if you don't already have a piece of paper and a pen, or even the notes app on your phone is also great, just go grab those now. All right, so here is the definition. I tend to start with definitions because I went to law school, so I'm a little like trained in that way of thinking. So the definition of purpose. Purpose is the intention, aim, or function of something, the thing that something is supposed to achieve, which sounds kind of a bit vague, but I promise it will become a bit more clear. So the first thing is for you to think, what comes to mind for you when we talk about purpose? So when I say to you, like, oh, you're coming to a session on finding your purpose, or when you scroll through Instagram and you find a like little someone's like screenshotted quote that says follow your purpose or whatever, like what comes to mind for you when you hear that word, or when you hear about like companies integrating an element of purpose into their corporate values and stuff like that? So maybe just take a few moments. I'll give you like a couple seconds. If you're rewatching this, you can always pause and just like journal or write down some notes for a bit. Let me give you the definition again. Purpose is the intention, aim, or function of something. And I wonder whether you have any initial thoughts of like, maybe you know exactly what your purpose is and you've just come here to kind of like see another perspective, or maybe you have no idea, or maybe you don't really believe in the idea of like having a purpose, or whatever your preconceptions are. Just make a little note of those. So as you're writing, thinking, or maybe you're drawing a picture or whatever, it doesn't have to be a set way of doing it. Here are some other questions that normally come up around the question of purpose. So one is a question of scope. So this is the idea, like, should you just have one purpose, or should you have loads of smaller purposes, if that's the right plural word, throughout your life? So obviously, when we talk about purpose, most people would say, oh, I don't know what my life's purpose is, because it's quite rare that we know, like coming out of university or coming out of graduate studies, like this is my one life purpose and this isn't going to change for the next 50 years. So that's the idea of having one singular purpose. I would say from my observation of working in this field for a while, that is extremely rare that people feel that way and then maintain it over a long period of time. It's not impossible, but it's pretty rare. So more common is that people have lots of smaller purposes. They have lots of things in their life that give them a sense of purpose, or that they can find purpose within. And that might be the case for you. So if that is the case for you, maybe make a note of what those things are, or those areas of your life are that you find little bits of purpose in. And then the other way of looking at this is depth. So should your purpose be something that lasts the next 20 years? Or should it be like short-term projects where you're dipping in and out and you're looking at purpose from different angles and you're finding different elements of your personality are engaged in doing different things all at the same time? So maybe this is the idea of like one traditional career, if you looked at it in career terms, versus like the portfolio approach where you're looking at like different things and integrating different aspects and stuff like that. So these are just some things for you to think about. All right, so yes, it's okay not to have the perfect answer, or in fact any answer. And I think this is actually the whole point of like figuring out these ideas around purposes, just to come up with a general sense of where your purpose might lie, not to come up with a perfect like one-line statement that says my purpose is X, Y, and Z, and then just go away and live the rest of your life in perfect harmony with that. So more of a fluid concept that evolves over time, that you're just navigating and refinding again and again and again. All right, so we're going to move on to mission. We'll come back to purpose later, but for now, let's talk about mission. So here's your definition of a mission. A mission is an important goal accompanied by strong conviction. And you might be thinking of like a corporate mission statement, or like sometimes personal mission statement is something that your future employer might get you to do. Just think about your personal mission. Or maybe it's something you've thought about before for yourself in terms of like having a very important, clear goal. Something like, I don't know, running a marathon, or like something that's going to take you a little bit of planning, and it's going to take you a bit of time. It's going to take you a lot of training. And it's this one clear goal accompanied by a really strong will to achieve the goal. That could be one example. So think of a couple of people that come to mind who have a strong mission. So people that just cross your mind. These could be members of your family, friends, celebrities, like popular figures, historical figures, people at work, or people that you know, like within your course or at university or in your studies, or even people that you've like heard about, like a friend of a friend or something like that. People that you know are known for their really strong mission. So while you're thinking of that, maybe you thought of some of these people. Obviously, each of these people, each one has a different sense of what their mission is, but I think we would all associate them with having quite a clear mission or a clear vision of something that they want to achieve, accompanied by a really strong conviction to achieve that thing. So for most of these people, that involves overcoming serious boundaries or like challenges or obstacles to achieving the thing. And in a way, that's what makes their message like even more resonant, is the force that they have to apply to get their message heard and to get their work seen and to leave their legacy or whatever against like maybe the tide of popular opinion, or maybe like physical limitations or whatever. So maybe you thought of some of these people. So here I'm going to just talk you through really quickly how to make your own mission statement if you want to. Now, the purpose of having a mission statement is really just to clarify and consolidate your thoughts around what your mission is. You don't have to have a mission statement for everything that you want to achieve in life, obviously, but if you do have a really clear goal and you want to like set it out on paper, which sometimes makes it a bit more like tangible, that you can sort of see it and then you can work towards it, then this is normally how I would do a mission statement. And you can do this really for a personal or professional goal. I think the example that I have in this one is a career goal, but it doesn't have to be. It could be like a personal goal. So it could be like personal goals could be like fitness related maybe, or like even like friendship or relationship based, in that like you might want to have a mission to get to know more people in your community or whatever it is. So here is a basic template of how you can do this. So the first thing is to, I'm just going to move the things I'm on top of. The first thing is to figure out what your main goal is. So again, as we were saying before, that's sometimes the hardest bit. It's like, what do I actually care about? Like, what do I want to achieve? Sometimes with a mission, this is a little bit easier to articulate than a purpose, because a mission tends to be a bit more defined. So where your purpose might be, I don't know, like having a life that is full of health and wellness, but your mission might be to run a marathon, for example. So one is kind of broad and intangible, and one is very specific and tangible. So that's the first step. Second step is, note down how you want to achieve the goal. So what kind of character do you want to develop in the process, and who do you want to become on the journey? Which sounds a bit dramatic, but this step is really just about figuring out like what this mission is actually going to do for you in your life. And for me, I think this is always the most interesting part of this work, is like, how does it change you? How does it impact your life? Not just what you achieve, because as I'm sure you will all know, having achieved your university results or like a first job or anything, all achievement is just like, it's great for what it is, but it doesn't necessarily bring you any sense of personal fulfillment unless it's tied to greater personal development. By that I mean like you became a more diligent, like educated, intelligent, and like resilient person from the process. That's kind of what the most interesting outcome is, not like a grade on paper, even though that is great as well. So yeah, thinking about like what kind of character you want to develop during the process of going for your goal. So again, with the marathon example, this could be someone who is determined, is committed, is motivated, takes care of themselves, like maybe makes a community with other people, stuff like that. And then give yourself a rough timeline for achievement. So normally mission statements are around like 3 to 6 months, but they could be longer or shorter, depending on what works for you. So here is an example. This one is a careers example, but you can feel free to like take this. We'll send around the slides later as well, so you can use this template if you want for yourself. But you can use these headers for anything. It doesn't have to be careers. So in this example, the main goal is promotion. How to achieve the goal, this is like who you're going to be on the way to the goal, or who you're going to develop into on the way to the goal. Growing and developing your personal brand as someone who excels at their role. And then time estimate for this one is 6 months. And then what you do when you have those 3 components is you then like blend them together to make one statement. Obviously it's the mission statement, so it's not a mission list of bullet points. So you blend those all together and you say, my mission statement is to do whatever it is. For this example, it's to obtain career promotion over the next 6 months. So you tie in the time limit using whatever character traits you want to develop in the process, if that makes sense. So yeah, the idea of like blending it all together, once you have your statement, you can do whatever you want with that. You can write it down, you can pin it up, you can put it as your phone lock screen, you can come back to it every week, you can talk about it with your supervisor at work, you can talk about it with your friends, family, therapists, whatever you want to talk about, like whatever mission statement it is, whatever's relevant to it. So, you know, it can really be used in whatever way is helpful for you, depending on how you want to use it. Okay, so third and final category of like the purpose elements is passion. And here's your definition. Passion is an intense desire or enthusiasm for something. And I'm sure you guys all already know what your passions are. However, we're going to explore it a little bit. So if you can now, just by yourself, name 3 things that you're most passionate about. So these are just things that you find really interesting, or that you find fascinating, or that sometimes you can feel passion when you get into that like sense of flow, you know, where you're really immersed in whatever it is and time moves really quickly or moves really slowly or whatever. Yeah, so 3 things. That could be anything. Like for me, it might be like dance, music, and friendship, or something like that. I just made this up, but it could be something like that. Yeah, and that could be like conceptual stuff, like relationships or your partner, like, or the, you know, your family or whatever. Or it could be more practical stuff, like you love swimming, or like basketball, or like whatever it is. Okay, so here are a few questions to kind of aid in that process. These are just great questions to ask yourself like all the time. If you're going through a period of time where you're like, nothing is fun anymore, like nothing is interesting anymore. And I've had these periods of time, like several times in my life, where I just think like, I don't know what I'm passionate about anymore. Here are some questions that can help you play around with this idea. So what do you love to do? What are you doing when you feel most in flow? That's that sense we were talking about before. If you had unlimited money, what would you do tomorrow? Or sometimes this question is phrased as, if you had unlimited money, how would you change your day tomorrow? Like, what wouldn't you do tomorrow? And I remember like when I was a lawyer, like we had a coach come in and who was saying, you know, like if you had unlimited money, like what parts of your job would you do? And what parts of your job would you choose to delegate to someone else? And so that's a really revealing process, because it tells you exactly which parts you don't want to do, and then you can sort of start to tailor or redesign your life in a way that, in the way that you can, to focus less on those things and more on other things. What was your first career ambition? But that's always revealing, in the sense that it might not tell you, oh yeah, you wanted to be an astronaut or a fireman or a ballet dancer or whatever. But it normally tells you something, if there is any consistency, about the things that you've always been interested in. So for example, like if you wanted to be an astronaut, like there might be a sense of fascination with the universe, or like fascination with reality or the way things are, or just an exploration of mystery, something like that, or a sense of adventure. Like with the fireman, it might be like a sense of service, of giving back, of helping others, of being like having that sort of dynamic, fast-paced, heroic kind of element in your life, where you're really serving others every single day. With the ballet dancer, it might be like love of art and music and like form and design and stuff like that. So there's always a little hint. Well, normally there's a bit of a hint depending on what yours was. What is the highlight of your week? So what do you look forward to the most? And I think the key with all of these questions is like just to be really honest with yourself. I think sometimes when we do this kind of exercise, me included, we think, oh, I've got to say, I want to do like really good things with my life. I want to like, you know, be really healthy and like go for a run every day. And I want to like then go and work in charity for 24 hours. And I think all of those things are good because even that tells you something about like what you want from your life. Like if you're saying you want those things, there is an element of yourself that really values that. But I think it's also helpful to be really honest. So if honestly, the highlight of your week is getting paid and then having money to go and do what you want, okay, write that down, like figure out what the value is that underlies that feeling. And then you can use that value to indicate, you know, really what matters to you in life. And it's often not the surface level thing that we think that we care about, that is the thing we actually care about. So for example, with money, like when I'm working with people who really prioritize money as like a key, something they're passionate about, something that's one of their key values, it's often not like money in itself so much as like financial autonomy or like the ability to look after yourself or not to have to rely on anyone else or to have beautiful things, which itself is a slightly different value from money, if that makes sense. Sometimes you get to the surface level and you're like, I think I could go a little deeper, and that's where you can go deeper if you want. All right. So here are some things that kind of get in your way, which I'm sure has already come to mind for many of you, because we all have these obstacles. And especially when you're talking about something like purpose or mission or finding your passions, for me, whenever someone talks about that, I'm always just a bit like, yeah, but the reality is like life is kind of hard and everything is sometimes really tiring and you just have a long week. And then the last thing you want to do on like Saturday morning is, okay, what are my passions? Like, let me go and do all of my passions today. Sometimes it feels easier just to like lie in bed, and actually that could be a good passion as well, just like having a line. But there are also ways that you can get around these obstacles and just bring this work into your life in a way that works for you, that actually feels personal and meaningful and impactful. So here are some things to consider. You've got time, lack of time, don't have enough time to like find my purpose because I literally just have to go to work every day, and like when it comes to my day off, I'm exhausted, so that kind of thing. Money, like if you don't have enough money to, like if you don't have the financial security to suddenly like quit your job, for example, and go and do something else. And for me, this one has always been really like relevant because when I grew up, I didn't really have like financial security. So it was always one of my biggest priorities in getting a career of my own, which is one of the reasons I went into corporate law, is like good financial security with a clear pay scale and a reliable income and like a clear way to earn a decent amount of money. Not because I loved like money, but because I wanted not to be scared about not having any money. So I think that's one thing that can sort of hold you back a little bit from looking elsewhere, because you think, you know, now I have a good career, or now I have a clear career that's going to pay me. I don't want to jeopardize that by now like going out to find my passion, and maybe I won't even find it or whatever. So that's another thing. Relationships. So some people are in relationships or family structures that have been educating you maybe since you were even a kid, that like finding your passion just isn't a feasible option, and instead what you need to do is just go out and get a job that pays well, or you need to like do the family business or like follow in family footsteps, or a relationship with someone else who's dependent on you that you need to take care of, like kids or, you know, other members of your family, that you need to just stay in your job and work your way up, instead of like floating around and finding your passion. So that's one thing. And then expectations, kind of similar. Self-doubt, this is a little bit more like internal focus. That's when you think maybe you don't deserve to be able to go and find your purpose, or maybe you think that you just don't have one, or that it's not possible for you, stuff like that. Failure, this is when you maybe go out and try and find your purpose, and like nothing really works out, and then it just feels like, oh, well, why would I bother? Travel, that was in there from another session I did, where the people that I was talking to when I put this on the slide were management consultants, which maybe some of you guys are considering that career as well. Or maybe you're considering a career that has a lot of international travel. One of the problems this group were facing was like they just did not have enough time to sit down every week and think, what do I care about? Like, how am I going to tailor my career to be a bit more personal to me? Because they were literally on the go all the time. They didn't even have like a regular home base. So that could be one thing that's like challenging in throughout your career. What I would say about this list, and obviously there are a lot of other things that belong on this list as well, is that all of these things, yeah, they are barriers, they are obstacles. I don't think you necessarily have to remove them entirely, and some of them, you know, aren't even possible to be removed because they depend on people or circumstances outside of you. But I think what you can do is acknowledge them, like write them down, think about them, talk about them if you want with someone else, sort of examine them. So like actually bring them out into light and properly look at them. Because I know for me, with the money one, which was one of my biggest ones, the moment I started to really talk about that and think about it and like be honest with myself about it and about where that was coming from, that was the moment it became less powerful for me, because then I felt like, okay, I can see what this is. Like I can see maybe ways to get around it. There are always different paths that you can take. So for example, if it's a time problem, there are different ways that you can integrate this work into your life that are just more time friendly. So little bits every week and then returning to it regularly, stuff like that. With money, there are different routes you can go down, maybe like having a side project at first to see if it will work, testing the waters before you jump out of your corporate job, whatever. So yeah, there are ways to work around all of these, but I would say the most important thing is to just recognize them and see what's going on for you, and then then you can just take it from there, if that makes sense. Obviously it's a lot more complex than I can put into a 45-minute presentation, but that's an introduction to some of that stuff. All right, we're going to go super quick through two other things, and then you guys can ask any questions that you want if you have any. All right, so this is kind of what we were talking about with like the money example, or when we were talking about passions and stuff and being honest with yourself about what you want. This tool is called the Foundational Why. And I actually wrote a whole thing on this for Entrepreneur Magazine, so maybe we'll send that around as well because it takes you through all the steps. But basically this tool it was a tool that was originally used in like corporate settings to get to the root of a problem. So if you had like a surface level supply chain problem, and then you were thinking, what is actually going wrong here? Then they would use this technique to get to the foundational reason that things were going wrong. For you in your personal life or professional life, you can use this to get to the core of any statement, any principle, any answer to any question that doesn't feel like it's the true or deepest answer. So for example, if someone asked you what your purpose was, and you said, my purpose is to be really wealthy and like own 10 properties, let's say, then you could use this technique to get a little deeper into that. And the idea is that you ask why, and then the person gives another answer, and then you ask why again, and then the person gives another answer, why, another answer, another answer, another answer, until you've asked why 5 times. This is also called the 5 why method. So if you're looking it up on Wikipedia, that's what I think it's called. But the reason I normally use like this idea of the foundational why is because when it comes to you as an individual, as opposed to like using it as a corporate tool, when it comes to just you're trying to figure out like what the deepest thing is for your purposes, not because you want to like work back through a problem and find the perfect solution, but because you want to get to the core or the deepest layer of like whatever the answer is to that question. So for example, you could ask, well, let's take the money, like I want to own 10 houses. I want to own 10 properties by the time I'm 25. I'm older than 25, by the way, so that's a hypothetical. But for you guys, that might be your goal. And then I would ask why. And then the answer might be because I want to feel in control of, or because I want to be successful, let's say. And then I would ask why. And then it could be because I want other people to admire me or see me as like a great person or something like that, to see me as someone to be looked up to. And then why? And then you might go deeper and say, maybe it's because, in the past, you haven't been in positions where you felt like you've had enough power. So you always wanted something to give you a sense of autonomy or responsibility, whatever it is. So you can go deeper and deeper. Obviously, the answers, there's no like perfect chain of responses, it's just whatever comes to mind. It doesn't always work for every question. So sometimes you get to the first why and you're like, actually, I think that is the deepest answer that I have, which is totally fine. Like, it's just a technique. It's not necessarily like the solution to all of your problems. But it's quite an interesting thing to do, and you can do it for yourself. You can do it for someone else. Like, you could do it with a friend if they have a problem that they're working through, or they want to get a little bit deeper into some of the things they've been thinking about. And yeah, it's just really a tool of active listening, of like thinking, responding, then like listening and going a little deeper. Sometimes you'll get a chain of whys that takes you off in the wrong direction. So like, you'll answer why, they'll give an answer, then you'll go a little further why, and they'll keep going. Sometimes they or you will feel like the eventual answer, the foundational answer, doesn't really reflect what you asked them at the beginning. If that happens, I just go back to the top, try again, try and go down a different chain of whys. Like I said, it's your tool, so it doesn't really have to have a perfect application. It's just whatever, however you want to use it, that is most helpful to you. All right, and then the final thing that I'm going to talk about is this concept called Kigo, which I'm sure you have all come across, whether it's in a book or just in the media, or seen it a lot on Instagram in the last few years. And this is a Japanese way of finding purpose. Again, it's only one way to do it. So all of the other things that we've talked about today, purpose, definition, mission statements, passions, foundational why, there are loads of other ways of doing it as well. These are just tools for you to have, for you to think about, for you to reflect on, whatever. And then, yeah, you can sort of put them into your life in whatever way works. I would say, like, have a go at this one, because it's quite like fun, interactive, and it normally gives you a good sense of like some interesting answers. So the way you do it is to draw 4 overlapping circles. There are more detailed versions of this where you also put like little sections in between the in-between circles, if that makes sense. So you actually have like 8 or 9 headings. But for this one, the basic one, you just have 4 headings: the thing you love to do, the thing the world needs, the thing you can get paid to do, and the thing that you're good at. And even when this was used as like a general Japanese sort of like well-being tool, it's not necessarily like a set thing, like you do it once and it's like, right, here's your Ikigai answer, like for the rest of your life, like go and have fun. It's more just like a personal development tool, like all of the other ones we've spoken about, that gives you a sense of direction, or like we said at the beginning, like a compass, a guide, or a sense of grit and determination to go and do whatever you want to do in the world. So yeah, maybe have a go. You can draw around a cup. I normally do it drawing around a glass, unless you have one of those things, those maths things that we used in GCSE maths, where you do a circle with that thing. Or I can't even remember what that's called. Oh, a compass. So yeah, unless you have one of those to hand, in which case use that, but then draw 4 overlapping circles. In the middle, you're going to have a space where all of the things overlap. And that theoretically is going to be where you find your Ikigai, or your sense of purpose. So let me show you an example. Sometimes, again, like with all the tools, this doesn't always give a perfect result. So you might not actually know like what should go in each category, but just have a go. Like, you can do it as many times as you want. Just keep doing it over and over until you find like a version that feels like it's authentic to you. So at the top, you've got, I love to play music. So that was the thing that you love. The world needs more art and creativity. That's what the world needs. And then what you can get paid to do, you can get paid to teach music. And then what you're good at inspiring others to start practicing music. So theoretically, in the middle of that is like music teacher or music coach, or working with students somehow, because that's what you can get paid to do. That's what you're good at. That's what the world needs. It doesn't always fit exactly with what you love to do. So as you notice here, that I love to is actually not I love to teach music, which would be a bit more straightforward. So this one is actually I love to play music. So that would indicate like be a musician, but instead you've ended up teaching music because that's what you can get paid to do. I actually based this on someone I know, so this is why it doesn't exactly match up. So for this example, it might be that your Ikigai is for the moment, for the next, like for whenever you need to earn a set amount of money, you teach music for that time, and in your spare time you play music, and then eventually maybe you can move into more playing and less teaching, if that makes sense. So you might have a little bit of a dissonance between like certain elements of this diagram, but ultimately it's just a tool so you can play around with it, see what you feel is good. So let me just show you this one more time, and you can take a photo of this. You can actually find this thing, this diagram, all over the internet. So if you want to go and get your own copy, that is where you can do it. And yeah, I think that was all I was going to say. Hang on. Was it? Oh yeah. So this is my book, The Purpose Handbook, and this was out last year, I think, so a while ago. And in this book, I just do all of the exercises that we've done today in more detail, kind of giving the background to them and then like taking you through them step by step. So like the purpose thing, the mission statements, passions, the foundational why, a Kigo. There's other stuff in there. There's like 8 main exercises and then 5 additional ones. So like quite a few in total. And other things include like making an annual report of your life, so more like annual kind of reflections and things, and then a little bit of narrative writing about your own life and defining your own story and stuff like that. Yeah, there's quite a few others as well. So that's what's in here. And then there's also in there, there's like a little bit of practice, so how you would actually put this stuff into your everyday life in like very step-by-step ways that you can find time, or like find the space in your everyday life, as busy as you guys all are, I'm sure, to maybe bring a little bit of this work into it every single day. So that's the book, if you want to check it out. And this is where I am on the internet. So this is all the Purpose Workshop details. This is our website. We do consultancy stuff. I do a little bit of existential therapy one-on-one with people. So if you want to talk through any ideas, that's where you can find me. At thepurposeworkshop.uk, and then if you put an inquiry in through there, someone in the team will connect us. And then Instagram, I don't really update the Purpose Workshop Instagram, but you can go there. It's got a link to our online courses, and then LinkedIn. And then you can find me at Eloise Alexia on Instagram, and then my full name, Eloise Skinner, on LinkedIn and my website. So yeah, we will circulate those links as well. And yeah, I don't know, Ben, if there are any questions or anything. Oh, wait, I can see the chat. I thought I couldn't. There.
No, so yeah, I just put all your links that you put there, Louise, into the chat so everyone can see them there as well. I should be able to, yeah, should be able to click through to them. And yeah, we'll also be circulating a email in the next 2 weeks with all the details about how to connect with Eloise and kind of go through a lot of stuff that she's talked about today. But yeah, there hasn't been any Q&A or questions as of yet. So for anyone, for the attendees, if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them now. We can answer them right this second. Otherwise, we can always answer them later date if you wish. But yeah, thanks for that, Louise. It was very, very insightful. I must admit, I was writing down some notes and going through some things as well. So it's basically trying to say that it applies to not just people at the start of their careers, or people who maybe a few years into their careers, or even at the end of their careers. So it seems to be a lot there for everyone.
Yeah, and I think like for me, the most important thing with this work, especially when it comes to like essential questions of like meaning and purpose or whatever, is like it doesn't need to be so intimidating. I don't think these things are questions that should feel too big to encounter or feel too like overwhelming, or feel like things that maybe you should save until like your midlife crisis or whatever. But I think instead it's just like little things, like thinking about these things, maybe making a few notes, like observing your life and observing how you feel when you do different things. I think that's the most interesting part, and it's really just a process of like getting to know yourself, getting to know what you like, what you enjoy, what you don't like. Like this is your life, and I think there's really nothing more interesting than trying to figure out like what you want it to look like and how you want it to go.
100%. Yeah, I agree. It's quite funny what you're saying there, that people wait till when they're 30, 40 and have, like you said, midlife crisis to find out their purpose. Whereas if they did something like this and all the exercises you've been talking about, they did them at the start of their career or a bit early on, then they wouldn't, well, hopefully wouldn't have to have a midlife crisis to go through that kind of rigmarole. So
Yeah,
it's never too early.
just really steady little bits, like every so often, like just checking in. Like all of this stuff should be interesting as well. Like it should be fun, I think, not just like something that feels like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to think about my purpose or whatever, but more just like, yeah, what do I actually care about? And then, you know, how do I want to redesign my life?
Of course, yeah, because it's quite an intimidating thing. Because even I think, you know, what do I want to do? And that's what everyone thinks. So it's also intimidating because you don't really know what to do next. Like, you know, you want to think about your purpose, but you don't know how to. And pretty much everything you've spoken about and the companies you run help you do that. So yeah, it seems really good.
Well, yeah, and feel free to actually, seeing as I have the chat, let me put my just my Instagram handle. So if you do have questions that you want to just message me, I'll keep an eye out on my. Actually, I think I just sent that to you. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah, I've already got. I put your personal stuff actually, because I only just clocked on that the ones that you're showing on the screen now are the purpose workshop, and I put your personal, so it goes to your personal website, your personal Instagram, your personal LinkedIn.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do have any like questions, you can drop me a DM on Instagram or through my website. There's like a contact form there. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, as we've got no further questions, yeah, like Eloise was just saying, feel free to contact her directly. She's going to help you in everything that's been spoken about today. And so, yeah, thank you everyone for joining today's session. That concludes our BJ Career Month. And thank you so much, Eloise, for coming along and speaking about the Purpose Workshop and finding a career, because it's been very useful for all the panelists and all the attendees. And I'm sure a lot of people will be watching this video as well. So thank you.
Having me.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the end of Careers Month. I hope you all enjoyed it. And as I was saying before, all the recordings will be put on the website, as well as sent in an email with the links to the YouTube page for all of these sessions, so you can always watch them at a later date. And any other questions about BJ membership, feel free to message us at membership@businessgraduateassociation.com. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and hope you'll have a great rest of the day. And thank you again, Eloise.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.